day, televiewers, and welcome to the last episode of Teleturuan for Quarter 1 of English 10. Again, I am Sir Mark Lester A. Rufino from Science High School. For this session, we shall be evaluating listening texts in terms of accuracy, validity, adequacy, and relevance. We live in a world filled with sounds. Every day, we hear oral information whenever we communicate with other people. We also give information by responding. Listening is such a big part of our lives. It is necessary for us to learn how to think and analyze while listening. When we listen to understand and determine the value of what we hear, we practice analytical listening. Since we hear oral information every day, it is important that we know how to understand and analyze such information. It will help us make decisions more effectively. However, not all information that we hear are true. Some are false, inaccurate, inadequate, or irrelevant or not useful. At this point, as we continue, I want you to listen to a report from Rappler about male and female equality in the country. As you listen, take note of information that will help you decide whether the news report is valid, accurate, relevant, and with adequate information.
Male-female inequalities in PH decrease. World Report. The Philippines was better able to address inequalities between men and women in 2013 than the year before. This is according to the 2013 Global Gender Gap Report, which ranks the Philippines fifth out of 136 countries in terms of progress in closing the male-female gender gap in economics, politics, education, and health. In 2012, the Philippines ranked 8th. Philippines is the only country in Asia and the Pacific that has fully closed the gender gap in both education and health, the report reads. The index measured gender disparities in education in terms of literacy and the ratio of men and women per education level. Health was measured in terms of life expectancy and the sex ratio at birth. The report, a project of the World Economic Forum, measures results rather than input. The report focused on how the female population fared against the opposite gender, instead of gauging how well a country invested in female-friendly policies. This year, the Philippines scores a higher ratio in the Wage Equality Survey, improves its estimated earned income, and has a larger representation of female professional and technical workers. Read the report. ROI and women's participation. The Philippines ranked first, tied with 31 other countries in terms of women's health and survival. It also ranked first, tied with 24 other countries in terms of women's educational attainment. While fully closing the gender gap in health and education, the country ranked 16th in terms of women's economic participation. The report concluded that investments made in women's health and education generally gain a return of investment in women's economic and political participation. The Philippines had one data point missing in the 2013 Global Gender Gap Report, leaving it out of the list in terms of the Gender Gap Index in politics. As of 2013, Rappler data shows that women comprise less than 30% of Philippine Congress. Globally, said the report, significant gains have been made in terms of women's political empowerment. Women in the workforce. Women are valuable assets in the workforce, the report says, reinforcing the need for diversity for innovation to flourish. Women may have a propensity for making more inclusive, informed decisions and for engaging in less risky behavior, says the report, adding that gender-equal teams may be more successful. The challenge, however, is not only to achieve equal opportunities for employment, but equal opportunities for women to climb the corporate ladder. It is a loss for companies if these highly skilled women are forced to choose between work and family at later stages of their career, the report reads. The report, prepared by Ricardo Hausman of Harvard University, Laura Tyson of the University of California in Berkeley, and Yasmina Bekach and Adia Zahidi of the World Economic Forum, encourages business leaders and policymakers to ensure practices that equalize opportunities for rising to positions of leadership within companies. Citing data from the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific countries, the report says around 42 to 46 billion are lost each year in the region when women are restricted of job opportunities. A matter of human rights. The Global Gender Gap Report started in 2006, tracking the progress of countries in dealing with gender-based disparities. By utilizing the Global Competitiveness Index, the 2013 report also determines a positive correlation between a country's competitiveness and its progress in closing the male-female gap. For 2013, the Philippines jumped 6 notches higher in the Global Competitiveness Index and 3 notches higher in the Global Gender Gap Index. The most important determinant of country's competitiveness is its human talent, the skills, education, and productivity of its workforce. And women account for 1/2 of the potential talent base throughout the world, the report says. Closing gender gaps is thus not only a matter of human rights and equity, it is also one of efficiency, it concludes. PCW reacts. A day after the release of the report, the Philippine Commission on Women welcomed the good news, saying the country is valuing women as active drivers of development. PCW is a government agency primarily tasked in championing gender equality. PCW added, however, that much more can be done specifically in fully implementing the Women's Bill of Rights. Efforts to keep children in school, especially boys, to expand economic opportunities for women, and increase women's participation in decision-making positions need to be accelerated and sustained in all spheres of society, it said in a statement. Source, Rappler.com.
Thank you for listening attentively. Let us now talk about the news articles you have just listened to. What is the news article all about? What is the source of the news? Did you remember? Is it a valid source? What data about male and female equality in health and survival, education, economic participation, and politics have been mentioned? Will you consider the news accurate? Why? How important is the news to your life? Does the article have all the necessary details that you would need to be well informed on the issue? What other do you need? Indeed, being an intelligent listener requires listening with understanding. It implies analyzing the spoken words that you receive as information. Through analytical listening, you can use oral information in an effective way. More so, as one listens analytically, he can synthesize the pieces of information presented if those are valid, accurate, relevant, and with adequate information. But the big question now is, how can we say that an article is valid, accurate, relevant, and with adequate information? The standards of a valid, accurate, relevant, and adequate article shall be discussed right after some few reminders from our sponsors.